It's a pleasure to be here. Good morning. Just a little bit about me before I start. Today I'm going to be talking about families and parenting. I was asked to talk about parenting. So I need to begin with my parenting. These are my two gorgeous sons. And as any parent knows, they're the children that you have are the most precious things that you have. So I was asked to talk about parenting and families. So a little bit about me. I think I was introduced as a clinical psychologist. I come from near Melbourne, which is way down south in Australia. It's cold, but not as cold as Poland. But I like the cold. So I have been working on parenting teenagers for more than 20 years. And I did my PhD on parenting teenagers. And all of my research has been around adolescent mental health. With my colleague Joseph Cherokee from Australia also, we have been working for the last 10 years on how to help adolescent mental health, but also how to help adolescents in schools. So we very quickly realised we needed to move beyond mental health and consider all teenagers and the space that they grow in. And along the way, we've spent some time, of course, learning about parenting, and you can't work on learning about teenagers without learning about children as well. So the work that we do is mostly housed on this website, thrivingadolescent.com. And one of the things that we focus on is trying hard to make sure we have open resources and free resources. So if you go to our website, you'll find there's free information there. At the moment, it's mostly in English, but there will be Polish translations. I've already spoken to the Polish people here, and we will make that available to you as well. So if I begin with what it's like to be a parent, and really what it's like to be an adult or a child in today's world. Work across the mental health field, mindfulness and acceptance work is exploding everywhere. It feels as if there's something that we are searching for, something we need. And we think that part of that problem is that we have never been exposed to the amount of fear and uncertainty that we do today. There have always been wars and struggles, and Poland have certainly had their share. But now we are in a place where children and teenagers are constantly exposed to the media. So while there have always been struggles, now we get our daily dose. And children and teenagers are growing in a culture of constant media around world problems. And growing in a culture of fear is not what we want. On top of that, when we become parents, we expect our families to be like this. This is what you get if you Google families. We expect them to be like this. But too often as parents, what we get instead is this. That says, our get along shirt. And sometimes as parents, we end up feeling like this. If you ask parents what it's like to be a parent, they will often say, I never thought it could be this hard. And so what we think is there's a combination of the cultural messages that we get that being a parent will be like this, and it's like this. Or that our world is full of fear. So we think that one of the reasons that we have turned to mindfulness and acceptance is because of this combination that we need something. There's something we desperately need and something our children need. So when we talk about mindfulness, we're not talking about religious traditions. We're talking about finding ways to be here in life and to be able to live our daily moments and to find ways to be accepting of the difficult thoughts and feelings that we have. The alternative, of course, is to spend most of our days worrying about what will happen next, or worrying about what will happen in the world, or worrying about the mistakes we made yesterday. So one of the world's leaders in mindfulness is Jon Kabat-Zinn, and he argues that mindfulness is about learning to tune our instruments. Learning to take this very busy place inside our heads and understanding how to use it with psychological flexibility. We argue that for young people and for people who are parenting young people, before you can learn how to tune this instrument in here, you must first discover what that instrument is about, or even discover that you have one. So the work that we do is presenting a holistic way of understanding what it means to grow as a child and a teenager. And from a parenting perspective, we get lots of mixed messages. Many parents that I work with worry about whether their child has some genetic problem or whether they have inherited some problem. And we've just come out of decades of searching the human genome to see if we can map exactly which gene does what. And what we know is that our genes are not our destiny, but an interaction with the environment. Everything we do outside this world affects the genetic expression that we have. It's like a nature-nurture debate. And our children are not just the product of what they've inherited, but an interactive system. Equally, we, as a culture, we get hooked on the idea that everything is about our brain and how well our brain functions. But your brain is not the boss of you. Your brain, again, is the product of interacting with the world and grows and changes very readily. So our job when we work with children and teenagers is not to just think about putting information into their brains, but to think about them as a whole system. Equally, our body is part of that system. When we become focused on our brains, we tend to forget the holistic part of us and what we put in our bodies and what we do with our bodies is part of the system. So genes, brains, bodies are part of the system, but the other part that's equally important is the social connections that we have and that our children have. The whole system includes the social connections that we make, the environment that we grow our children in, and being seen and being heard by others is just as important as nutrition. We have decades of research showing that social connection and social interaction matters as much as nutrition, and matters as much as education, and matters as much as your genetic inheritance. So we argue that we need to work on a whole system when we work with children. And we begin that system by looking at the social space. In our model that you're seeing here, the social space surrounds the whole model. And we think when we work with children, the social space is the place to start, and teenagers. Not just in mental health, but in everyday health, in our classrooms and in our families. The social system is the place we start with. We have known for decades that attachment and nurturing matters. But sometimes parents feel that they're not very important, that schooling matters more, or that friends matter more. But that's not the case. The social system is the starting point for nurturing a human who is loved and accepted and psychologically flexible. The research shows us that the social system is the key for good academic outcomes. Young people who are socially connected, with good friendships, with good parenting, have better outcomes academically. Better relationships, better performance in life, better academics. So if you're a parent, you're the most important key. If we look at the research, young people report the highest rates of loneliness in any age group. Up to 79% of those under 18 report feeling alone sometimes or often. And this is American data, but I checked. Hubert and I went and checked the data for Poland, and we see it's the same or similar. There are always cultural differences, but the data is similar. And what does loneliness predict? Loneliness is not being alone. Loneliness is feeling that no one hears you or sees you. And what does loneliness predict? Pretty much every health outcome that you would not want. Heart disease, obesity, impaired cognitive performance, poor sleep, poor immune function, mental health problems, poor self-control. So the first tip that I have for parents, your children need you all of the time. And this may seem obvious, but sometimes parents, particularly of teenagers, feel like they're not very important anymore. They feel like their children's friends are more important than they are. And because they might argue with their teenagers, they might feel like teenagers don't need them. So the number one thing to get a child through the teenage years and through the child years and into an adulthood that is well adjusted and is your parents need you. You need to know your parents need you. My PhD was in this. I could sum up my PhD in one sentence. Teenagers need their parents even if they say they don't. Support from parents is more strongly associated with well-being and development than support from friends. Having friends does not adequately compensate from lack of parent support. Adolescence is a time of critical growth in biological, brain, cognitive and social functioning. Young people need a solid relationship with parents that facilitates communication and allows exploration. But importantly, this does not mean an absence of conflict. In fact, sometimes teenagers need the conflict. The conflict teaches them where the edges are, where the boundaries are. How do you get to be an adult without practicing and making some mistakes? Without pushing hard and having a parent create some boundaries for what you should and shouldn't do? But as parents, this is incredibly hard for us. What we want to do as parents, most often, is protect our children and not fight with them and not have difficulties. This letter from a teenager, I think, sums up what we need our teenagers to do and what we need our parents to do. And if you could read this in Polish, that's... So your parents' job is to hang on to the end of the rope and not let go, while the teenager finds out what it means to be a growing, independent person. And a strong relationship is about being able to express your opinions and express your disagreements and know that no matter what you do, your parents are going to be there at the end of that rope. The second tip I have for parenting young people is to steal time back. We are a time-poor society, and the best way to support teenagers is to be there. I know this sounds obvious, but we run and we're busy. And so the teenagers that I work with and the parents that I work with, I teach them how to just be together. How to just find time to be together. Not doing things, but just being there, being together. And if you have a teenager who's struggling and parents who are struggling together, one of the beginning places I say to parents is stop asking questions. So I did my PhD on teenagers interacting with their parents, and I asked teenagers, how many questions is your parent allowed to ask you at the end of the day? How many do you think they said? 2. So you've only got 2 questions at the end of the day. Make them good ones. In the centre of our work, in the centre of the model that you see there, you see what we call vitality or value. So whether it's parenting or whether it's with teenagers and children, we teach them about finding ways to connect with what you care about. Connecting with things that matters is the key to finding our way through the teenage years. Okay, let me see where I am. So connecting with things that matter is what, or things that are in your heart is how I describe it to teenagers and parents, is one of the keys. And we use 6 ways to help parents and teenagers think of that. Caring for yourself, if you're a teenager or if you're a parent, caring for yourself is one of the 6 things that is linked to vitality and well-being. If you're a parent, that includes looking after yourself. Some parents say they have no time. They have no time to care for themselves. And then I ask you this question. Do you hope that your child will grow up knowing how to look after themselves, knowing how to do self-care? Do you hope that your child knows how to practice self-care? And if you do, how do you model it? Do you model self-care in your daily life? Mothers, this is an important one. Do you model that it's okay for you to do what you need to do? Read a book, have a sleep, go for a walk, see friends. Fathers too, come home from work. I know that's stereotyped, but it is like that. Come home from work, spend time with the kids. If you want your children to grow up practicing self-care, then the best way to teach them is not to tell them, but for them to see how much you care about yourself. And they will copy you. And one day you'll have daughters who will grow up knowing that it's important that they look after themselves because they saw you do it. And you'll have sons who grow up knowing it's important to look after themselves because they saw you do it. That's the key. Connecting with others, giving to others. We're just starting to show the research coming through that giving to others gives benefits to the giver as much as the receiver. Finding ways to give to others gives us more benefit than we ever thought. Finding time for children to be active and for parents to be active. And challenging ourselves. And being present, being here. Being able to let the worries of the future go and to learn how to be here. Those 6 things are shown as the keys to well-being. And if you're a parent and you want your child to know how to do these 6 things, they'll learn by watching you do them for yourself. That's the best way. Not by telling them, but by watching you do it. So looking after your physical self and looking after a teenager's physical self. In the clinic, there's lots of things I see with teenagers, but the 3 things that I see neglected the most is nutrition, sleep and exercise. Anyone have one of these? 40% of teenagers sleep fewer than 6 hours a night. Less than 25% sleep 8 hours. And only 7% sleep the recommended 9 or 10 hours. Which leads to the phrase of zombie teens. Teenagers need 9 to 10 hours sleep a day, but the problem is that their body clock is delayed. They release, melatonin is the chemical that has the onset of sleep for us. Melatonin is what we release towards the end of the day when we're going to sleep. But with the onset of puberty, melatonin releases about 90 minutes later. It's very common for teenagers to be awake very late at night. They can't sleep, but we still have them up and bright and early out to school at 6 o'clock in the morning. So we need to help teenagers and parents know the importance of sleep, nutrition and exercise. Making sleep a priority. Remembering that you are the parent. The reason I have that there is I work in the clinic with lots of parents who have trouble with televisions in bedrooms and phone use at night time and all of those things. So remembering you are the parent sounds really obvious, but sometimes we forget that it's okay to provide some rules that are not popular. Learning about our body clock and trying to have the same daily sleep and wake times is very important for children and teenagers. Setting a 9-hour sleep goal if you can. Powering down and stopping screen time at sundown. Quiet bedrooms, dark like a cave. No sugar or caffeine, all of those things will help our teenagers. And not just teenagers. I've been known to have my phone under my pillow. It's not a good thing. So value and vitality comes from those 6 ways of well-being and 6 things that we can care about. Down the bottom here you'll see what we call the noticer space. The noticer is simply a class of behaviours that all humans have. If you've seen me over the last few days, you'll know this picture. This little fella is a noticer. We are all born able to notice the world with curiosity, to be present in it, and to be open to the experiences that we see. And noticing is also about being able to experience discomfort without the evaluations. So being able to be uncomfortable, that includes being able to be sad, being able to be frustrated, being able to be angry. All of those things are normal sensations that we come with. As humans, we don't just come with this one thing. We come with this and with this. And our job as we grow children and teenagers is to help them have all of their experiences. Not to tell them that sadness is bad or that anger is something they oughtn't have, but to help them understand that this is the full range of human emotions, and to help them notice and be able to understand what's going on in their bodies and find ways to help them do that. One of the problems, of course, we have as parents is the last thing we want is for our children to ever suffer, for our children to ever be sad or frustrated or angry. But if we don't help them learn how to be sad or frustrated or angry, how will they ever learn? How will they learn those skills if we don't help them do it? The problem as a parent is it hurts us. So we have to know how to have sad and angry and frustration inside our own body in order to let our children have it too. We need to help our young people understand that no matter what we do, we cannot turn our feelings off. That they come and they go just like sunshine and rain, and our job is to help children know that that's an okay thing, that our feelings are a message, not something to be controlled or eradicated. I don't know if this next slide will work, but I'll try it. This is something that I sometimes use to help teenagers understand what you really need, and kids, what you really need to do if you want to stop having feelings of sadness or anger or frustration. Does anyone know the Star Trek movie? Okay. Commander Data in Star Trek is an android. This is what you need to do if you want to stop having anger, frustration and sadness. You need to turn yourself from a human into Commander Data. We'll see how we go with this. Oh.
I believe I'm feeling anxiety. It's an intriguing sensation. The most distracting, I'm sure, is a fascinating experience. Perhaps you should deactivate your emotion chip for now. Good idea, sir. Done. Lisa, there are times that I envy you.
Now, if you're a parent, you probably want to sometimes deactivate your child's emotion chip. But in doing so, we're teaching them that the feelings inside their body are not okay. So if you want to be a human, you will have emotion. And the emotion is not the problem. It's understanding and learning how to deal with it. So the tip number 5 for parents, feelings will pass. And I know there are many, many times when I as a parent I was really frustrated. And I can remember times when I was really angry and I'm still ashamed of how angry and frustrated I got on those times. So our job is to know that those feelings will pass in our children and in us. To be able to notice feelings, to teach our children to allow the feelings to be there. And for us as parents, to only react to our child's feelings when we need to. The 2 things you can mostly do as a parent to help your child feel. Practice noticing and naming what is going on inside their body. And teaching them to allow or react. And as parents, your number 1 job is to show empathy when your child feels something instead of trying to fix it. So you have a handout today that looks like this, which explains these tips in a little bit more detail, particularly this important thing called noticing, which sounds really simple. But learning to allow or react to feelings is a key to well living. And we'll do a little exercise to show you what it's like. As a parent, one of the best things you can do is give yourself a 3-minute breathing space. You want to do it? Yeah? Can we do it? Okay. 3-minute breathing space as a parent. Depending on the age of your child, you can turn this into a 20-second breathing space. But this is a good place to start. So there'll be, in this 3-minute breathing space, there's 3 things that you need to do. The first thing is gather your awareness. And think of this like when you're a parent and you go around the house picking up clothes, toys, and tidying. It's like that. Gathering your awareness around what's in your body right now. That's the first step. The second step is just taking a couple of breaths with your mind just on your breathing without changing it or controlling it. And the third step is broadening your awareness back out through your whole body and returning back to the world. So those 3 minutes can be very beneficial, but it doesn't need to be 3 minutes. It can be 30 seconds. And when you do it, you can model for your child how to do it. So let's begin. Just gently close your eyes or look at a spot on the floor. And just begin by gathering your awareness. Become aware of how your body is right now in the chair. Just notice all the sensations and all of the things that are happening with your body. You don't need to change it, but just notice it. Much like as you go around the house at home and tidy up. Become aware of whether your body is calm or whether you're running. Become aware of sensations in your chest, in your shoulders, how your face is. And just gather it all up. How is your body right now in this part of the world? And now let your awareness narrow down until it's just focused on your belly and your breath rising and falling in your belly. Just this one place is the only place you need to be aware of right now. Your breathing rising and falling in your belly. Now gently expand your awareness slowly so that it begins to radiate out from your belly up into your chest. Let your breathing slowly go down to your toes. Let your breath expand out through all of your torso and up through your face into the crown of your head. And let your breathing slowly radiate out until you're noticing yourself here in the room with other people. And when you're ready, you can bring your awareness back to the whole room. Those simple little exercises are very powerful ways of helping children learn to be noticers and helping us as parents learn to slow down and learn to be here. There are lots of ways you can learn to practice those 3 things. I want to talk with you about this funny place that we call the advisor space. The advisor is simply a metaphor for how we use language and how we think and talk to ourselves. To help you understand what we mean by an advisor, easiest way is I want you to imagine, close your eyes is easier, and I want you to imagine that you have in your hand a fresh orange that has just been picked from the tree. And I want you to imagine yourself taking a smell, smelling what the orange is like. And then peeling the skin and slowly putting a piece of orange into your mouth to see what it tastes like. and noticing all the sensations that arise in your body as you do that. And when you're ready, you can just open your eyes. Everything you did there is what we mean by your advisor. It's simply a word we use to describe your learning history and how, with your learning history, you have the ability to create an orange and to know what it tastes like. It's this ability in our heads to imagine and use the past to predict the future. The important thing about our advisor is you can't eat that orange. Your advisor is not the experience. It is your memory and your learning of the experience. It is not the same. And so we as humans have developed the ability with language or thinking, if you want to call it thinking, we have developed the ability with thinking to remember lots of things that have happened to us and to use that information so that when someone says, here's an orange, we know what it will taste like. But that is not the experience of eating the orange. That's a different thing altogether. And the most important part about having the ability to think and to problem solve and to use language to navigate our world is that your advisor, your language ability, is designed to keep you safe. When humans evolved language, we believe the purpose of that language, the purpose of being able to communicate with each other, was so that we could help keep each other safe. It starts very simply with children. When a child touches something and you say hot, they pull their hand away. Then the next time something is hot, they don't need to touch it. You just say hot and they know. So this ability allowed us to learn fast and to know how to navigate the world in ways that are very efficient. So keeping you safe is an important part of your thinking. You will know your thinking often is full of things that might go wrong. That's normal. Our job is to help teenagers know that's normal. The other part of our thinking is that one of the key risks we have as humans is we need to be connected with others. So your thoughts in your head are often about what your other people are thinking, whether they think you're smart enough or whether they think you're good enough to be around, or whether you think you're okay to be around them, whether the thing you said was an okay thing. This ability we have as humans to think is mostly negative because it's mostly about finding danger and being connected with others. So it makes no sense to teach children that just positive thinking is a good thing. We need to teach them that positive thinking is okay and negative thinking is okay too, because that's what helps you. Our job is to teach children to listen and to not be afraid of negative thoughts, to know that they're a message and they get to choose and learn how to deal with that. The problem is not negative thinking. The problem is that we have forgotten that the human mind is designed to be negative, to look out for danger. And in the teen years, there is a lot of uncertainty and a lot of danger. Who remembers what it was like to be a teenager and to worry about whether you have friends and whether you're popular, or whether you fit in, or whether you're smart enough. You go from this time when you're a child and well protected by your parents out into the big wide world of high school, and your mind's job is to pick out the dangers. So our job is to help teenagers understand that. And it's not just teenagers who think like this, it's all of us. If you're a parent, many of your thoughts will be around whether your child is doing okay, whether the future is okay. Am I ringing? No, it's over there. I've got a phone here. I was trying to If you're a parent, you'll know many of the things you think about are worries about your child's future and worries about whether they're okay. That's normal. That's what it means to be a parent. When I recently asked a group of parents to tell me the hard thoughts that they have, the difficult thoughts that they have, the ones that come up often around what it means to be a parent, and I asked them to write it down anonymously. And I hope we can do this. I'm going to show this next video. Have you got it? Yeah. I'm going to show this next video, and what I want you to do is to see what parents think about as parents. And I want you to really take away the message that these fears you have for your children are normal, because they tell you that your child is the most important thing to you. That's all. They just tell you this is what you care about. Our job is to learn how to hear them and to know what to do with them. So this is what a group of normal parents think of their parenting. How many of those did you have? If you're not a parent, how many of those do you have in your relationships? Some? The problem is not that you think that. The problem is that no one tells you it's normal to think that. That this most precious human being that you have, your child, means that you are going for the rest of your life to worry about whether you're doing a good enough job to raise them. That means you love them, and that means you're normal. So negative thoughts are not a problem for most of us. For most of us, negative thoughts in our kids are simply a time to listen to our kids and hear that there is something going on. And our job is to give them empathy and compassion, but not to tell them, don't think like that. Our job is to say, it's okay to be afraid. It's okay to worry if you haven't done a good enough job. And to give them empathy and compassion. And our job for ourselves as parents is to know that when that thought comes up that says, you're not doing this parenting thing properly, to give yourself compassion and empathy and know that most of the time that simply means you care about this kid a lot and you want to be perfect at this job of parenting. That is half of our battle, just understanding how normal it is for most of us. And so that's what we mean by the advisor. The advisor is simply a metaphor that we give that describes how we all go around in the world telling ourselves what we should do and what we shouldn't do and what we're good at and what we're bad at, and that's okay. When we work with children, we tell them, your job is to know whether you're giving yourself advice that is helpful and to decide how to listen in that moment. That, of course, is not easy. Knowing how to listen is not easy. But firstly, know that there's an advisor telling you what you should do, like a little voice on your shoulder, and you don't always have to listen. The third way that we behave as humans is something that we call the discoverer space. So humans have the ability to love and care about things, to value things. They have a noticer, they have the ability to notice what's going on in the world inside them and outside them, to have feelings, to have compassion and empathy. We humans have the ability to give ourselves advice about what we should do and what we shouldn't do and what might go wrong. And the last one, we have the ability to discover what we can do in the world, to develop agency and autonomy, and to learn how to navigate the world. The discoverer can be summed up like this. The real voyage of discovery consists not in seeking new landscapes, but in having new eyes. Children approach the world with new eyes. Young people approach the world with new eyes. And our job is to foster that ability to discover and be creative and to find ways in the world that are new and exciting and different, and to continually build their skills. That's the discoverer space. Children and adolescents have ample ability to discover. When they don't have it, it's because we adults have squashed it. Don't try that, it won't work. So our job is, if you think about what the discoverer is, anybody who works with teenagers will know the passion that teenagers have to change the world that we've got. And part of that passion will be to say, you adults have got it wrong. You've messed it up. You're wrong. Let's change this. That's the discoverer piece that we want to foster in children and teenagers. We will need to keep, as parents, our advisor quiet while they try things that we've not done before, or try things that we've done before that don't work. So in the adolescent period, oh, hang on, we'll do this. This is the opposite of letting your child be a discoverer. Do you have a phrase for this in Polish? In America, they call them bubble wrap children. In Australia, we call them helicopter parents. You know, they're like a helicopter just hovering all of the time. Never let your child do anything. Do you have this in Poland too, or is it just in my country? Yeah. Is there a phrase for it? No? Okay. Good. The reason we have this is being a child and being a teenager means that we will have children and teenagers that love new things, that want to try and take risks. And particularly with teenagers, adolescents have evolved to take risks so that they can learn how to be independent. And by independent, I mean an adult. So they can learn to make decisions and they can learn to move around in the world. That's the opposite of what we want as parents. We want our children not to take risks so they don't get hurt. So being a parent means the thing you love the most is going to take risks, and your job is to have your own pain while you watch that. To support them and to be there, but to know how to let them fall down and hurt themselves and stand back up again. It's got to be the hardest thing you ever have to do. To watch your child be frustrated or angry or upset when they try something and it's hard. So we need to let children do that, and we need to find ways to help them take risks that are not maladaptive. Maladaptive risks are things like drug taking, inappropriate use of social media. Adaptive risk is things like having a voice, learning to speak out and give an opinion. That's the hallmark of the beginning of a child who's learning to one day stand up and be an adult that you're proud of. Having a voice, learning to speak out for what they care about, and us fostering that passion for young people to be leaders. The message is, for parents and for teenagers, is the fear never goes away before you do it. Everything we do as discoverers, we do afraid. We begin afraid. That's why it's discovery, that's why it's new. So our job is to help young people have new experiences, to track the experience and decide if it works. And to not just live life by what the rules in their head tell them they should and shouldn't do, or what their parents tell them they should and shouldn't do. So Discoverer is learning how to take adaptive risks, testing, trying, failing, and trying again. So there are 3 behaviours that every human can do. We can notice inside ourselves and outside ourselves and how we feel. We can give ourselves advice and tell ourselves the way things should be or they shouldn't be. And we can discover ways to move around in the world that make us stronger and build our capacity to live the life we want. And we use those 3 things every single day. And our job is to help our young people get more skilled at using them so that each day they can return to living a life that they care about. That's parenting. And so we might finish on just a little thing. This is the 8 things your kids need you no matter what they say. Steal back time, find ways to be together. Connect with vitality every day in small ways. Use the 6 ways to think about whether your life is balanced and whether your child's life is balanced. Think about important things like sleep, nutrition and exercise as just as important as what you put in your child's head with maths and science. Teach your children that feelings will pass and how to notice their feelings, and that bad feelings or negative feelings or sad feelings or angry feelings are not a problem. They're a message about something that they might need to do or not need to do. Teach yourself and your child to breathe. It's about the best thing you could possibly do. Before you react, breathe. Teach your child that negative thoughts are a time to listen, a time for you to listen as a parent. And when it's tough, give compassion instead of messages like "don't think that." And lastly, find ways to help your child and your teenager discover, to create, to build their strengths, to find ways to do things that may never have been done before. And when we can do that, our children will save this planet for us. Our teenagers will do it if we don't say, "that can't be done," but if we let them find ways. That's the discoverer piece. And I'll leave you with some parting thoughts around ways that we can help ourselves do this. Thank you. Jinkuya.